G'day Internet, welcome back to another video and to the IIe Platinum. First off, it's a bit windy today, so if you hear some odd noises in the background, it's just the wind. Let's call it ambience. But where we left off, I had the machine all running and it is still happy. But there are some other things we need to get moving on, so let's get to it. Now, because it's going to take the longest, I think we'll start with that rusty base plate. And here it is here in all its gross glory. Now, my first thought was to actually hit all this rust probably with a wire brush on my Dremel. But I haven't been able to buy any new brass brushes for it, and I can't find my other ones. My only other plan B is to use my power drill, but I think that's going to be overkill because this is only really surface rust. So I think I'm simply going to do it the hard way by hand with some sandpaper. So I've got some fairly coarse sandpaper. I think this is 80 grit or thereabouts. Let's see how we go. All right, we already seem to be making quite a dent. But I can already tell that down in this crevice here, it's not going to do the job. Primarily, I'm assuming this is where the majority of the moisture settled. And so, yeah, there's more rust damage here than anywhere else. Oh, screw it. Okay, that's at least all the big chunks off. My next step is to wet sand this with about some 400 grit, essentially something to give the new paint something to stick to. Okay, that has now all been sanded. I've also given it a wipe down with some IPA just to assist in the drying process. Clean that up. Primarily to help prevent any flash rusting. The next step is to actually mask off the reverse side so I don't get any overspray through all the holes and all the rest of it. And I'll also mask up the back bit, which doesn't need painting. Right, so I'm going to start by covering up all the random holes, I think. Righto, this is now all masked up and ready for paint, just in time for the weather outside to, well, turn to shit. But let's see how we go. Now, I will be painting this with Rust-Oleum, what's this colour called? Slate. Ultra Matte. Look, it's on the inside of the case. I'm not really fussed as long as it's like a dark grey. And this one has a primer built into it as well, so I don't have to mess around with etch priming or anything like that. I can just spray this straight on. So while paint is drying, let's turn our attention to this keyboard. Now, this is the type of keyboard that uses a whole bunch of individual switches soldered into the PCB and mounted in a metal frame. So I'm sorry to disappoint. I'm not going to completely disassemble this keyboard because the keyboard for the most part works. It's just very grubby down inside. And of course, as luck would have it, my new keycap puller that I ordered hasn't shown up, which it was meant to a couple of days ago. Yay. So I'm going to be doing this the hard way. I should say the hard and careful way. And all I have to say after that is, ew. Actually, let me give you a closer look. Now, I'm not going to say that that is the dirtiest keyboard I've ever seen, but honestly, it's got to be up there. that's pretty terrible. I think I'm going to start just simply trying to brush the big chunks out. That's what came out of the keyboard. Well, that's not quite true. That's what came out of the keyboard and landed on the bench. So next is, what do I want to do next? I think keycaps into a bowl of hot soapy water just to soak for a while. And then I think I'm going to attack this with some Windex and cotton buds. Ew. You see that? Ew. Right, I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it is a significant improvement on what we started with. But currently, the keycaps are still soaking, paint is still drying, so I think it's time to turn our attention to the bit of this computer that I think most people are probably interested in. And that would be this monitor. Now, this is an Apple II composite color monitor, but if you know anything about Apple II color, you'll know in NTSC land it uses specific color artifacting in order to generate color, something that doesn't work here in PAL land. But what this does is this utilizes a non-standard color burst, which is only generated by that particular Apple IIe Platinum machine to give us color. So basically, if you wanted color from your Apple IIe Platinum, at least here in Australia, you had to have this monitor, nothing else. It won't work on an NTSC monitor, for instance. And I also think that this monitor is actually unique to Australia and, well, I'm guessing probably New Zealand. But I have not switched this on. I haven't done anything with it. It's still filthy dirty, so I'm going to start by giving it a bit of a wipe over. And then I'm going to pull the back off it just to basically have a bit of a poke around, see if there's nothing too dangerous going on inside, especially considering the state of the rest of the machine. Righto, some Windex. Start with that. Not going for a full restoration here. I'm just making it hopefully a little less gross to use. Luckily, most of the grub seems to be limited to just the top. Geez, might have to bust out that drill again. All right, I think that's the worst of it. Now, I'm not actually sure how this thing comes apart, but I can see at least 4 accessible screws, so we'll start there. Okay, does that now come off? No, there's this screw here, but does that actually need to come out? Or is it going to undo something inside and the whole thing goes ka-thunk? Because that's actually a machine screw. What I don't want to happen is that these are the screws holding in, like, I don't know, the main board or something of this CRT, and as I remove them all, something goes thunk inside and I can't put it back together. Aha! There was more screws. Well, by some absolute miracle, it is incredibly clean inside. I'm looking around. You can't see me looking around. I'm looking around and it's very clean. Like, very clean. Having a look inside and seeing the condition that this is in, I'm actually reasonably confident to power this on. So I'm going to clear the bench-ish, pull the Apple II board back in and power supply and all the rest of it, and let's see how we go. Right, we're all plugged in. Right, light on the monitor came on. Nothing went bang. Okay. We've got colour. It's messy colour, but it's an Apple II. We have colour. The monitor works. It's actually not the one I wanted to go into. Okay. Total replay, 128K. We've got colour. And load runner, because that's what I always use. Load runner. Nice. I've got a colour Apple II. Sensational. Actually, here's something tricky. This has a colour black and white. And what I suspect it does is it actually just kills the colour burst, because I go do that and I get this. And that's not what a normal black and white version of Load Runner looks like. It's normally not broken like that. But, yeah, there you go. Although it should be pointed out that not only is this monitor a bit of a rarity, the fact that it's got its door is actually a bit of a miracle. So it's now actually about a week later. I've just been doing a few little bits and bobs during the week. For instance, I put the keyboard back together. The top covers got a thorough scrub. Here's a bit of a before and after of the top case. And the paint on the base plate finally dried, and I've put some of its doodads back together. It's just over here. But now that we know we've got a working monitor and everything else is tested, really the only thing to do is to put it all back together. Oh, and I also 3D printed some replacement panels for the back. Yes, they're white, they haven't been painted yet, and as you can see, there's still one missing. It's literally on the printer as I'm filming this. But at least it'll stop kind of, crap getting in. And it literally just occurred to me that I don't need that extra one because I still need to mount the disk drive connector. Oh well. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a balancing act. Right, you go... Which way have I got you around? Okay, because I can't actually really see what I'm doing. Right, 1, 2... Okay, and now I should be good to put the last two in. Right, next up is the main board back in, lining up all the little pegs. That looks pretty good. Yep. And we're in. 3 screws along the back. 4 screws along the back. Power supply can be plugged in. Speaker and keyboard switch. Okay, next is to get the keyboard mounted back in this thing, which should just be the 4 screws. Good, nothing caught up. And now this should just drop straight on, in theory. Okay. What am I caught on? There we go. That feels about right. Okay, now to put all the screws in the bottom. All right, we can now put the floppy drive controller back in and its little cable. And yes, I did buy a proper nut driver for this. And the booty card, which goes into the final slot. There we go. And now the lid. Nice. Forgot the memory expansion, didn't I? Yay. So there's only one last thing to do. You may have noticed when I first pulled this computer out, there was like a warranty support kind of sticker here. Now, when I gave this whole computer a scrubbing, it disintegrated because it was just a paper sticker, and it's left a nice white rectangle here because it hasn't yellowed. So because I'm not intending on retrobrighting this just yet, I dropped into Photoshop and I made a replacement. There you go, problem solved. And there we go, there is the Apple IIe Platinum, all working with its quite nice colour monitor. Now, obviously there is a lot of cosmetic work that still needs doing to this machine. That was not the point of the previous video and this one. It was purely to get it up and running. But to give you an idea, there is actually a white stripe that runs along the top of the monitor where the strap was that held it into that frame thing. So yeah, it's going to need a little bit of work. The actual machine, I think, was just primarily dirty. It actually looks really presentable, exactly how it is now. I mean, it's a touch yellowed, and you could tell by where I put that sticker on, but honestly, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to bother actually retrobrighting the computer. The disk drive needs doing and the monitor needs doing, but the computer, not so much. But this is actually quite a special machine, especially for us people in Australia, because colour Apple IIs, apart from the 2GS, didn't really exist because, being in Powerland, we couldn't take advantage of the NTSC artifacting that was used to get colour in America. And it's actually quite a capable machine. I mean, it's got 128K. I've got my booty card in there. We've got the benefit of a numpad, disk drive, and the color monitor. So this might actually become my go-to Apple IIe. But for now, that will pretty much do it. If you liked the video, click like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff. As always, a massive shout out to my Patreons, who you can see scrolling up the screen at the moment. And if you would like to support the channel, there is a link in the description. But until then, I'll see you in the next one.